Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Podcast, where you get to embrace your inner nerd. I am your host, Aaron.
And I'm your host, Brandon.
Brandon, how are you doing today?
I'm better now. I had a really long day, but I thought I'd be in a worse mood, but I'm not. So yeah.
Good.
How about you?
I was gonna say same, but not really the same. I had an okay day. It went by relatively quick. I had a shower thought, realizing that someone owes me like a ridiculous amount of money.
Oh.
But I was just kind of sitting there, and I had this train of thought that was like that started tracing back and back and back, and I was like, I still never got my money's worth back from that.
It's not me, is it?
No.
Oh, thank God.
But it's a pretty significant amount of money.
Not another one.
Not another one. I'm in so much debt. That was my day, and now we're here.
Your whole day revolved around a shower thought.
Well, no, but that just happened, like as like a home.
Oh.
Yeah, I showered, and then I was like, what? That's like the most interesting thing that happened, really.
I'm so curious on who this person is. And why. And what. Ooh. Cut that out.
No, I will.
Terry, cut that out.
Any hoozles. Brandon, so we do have a particular topic in mind, but before we get into it, I did have a couple things written down that I kind of wanted to run by you.
I think I only have one thing before we get into the main topic, but it like goes along with like the nerd fandom stuff, but
The nerd fandom stuff?
well, like nerd like on the topic of nerd stuff, but it just won't be as focused as
Well, what is it?
our other time. I just recently saw the recent trailer to the new Silent Hill F game.
Yeah.
So this is kind of embarrassing, but whenever it was when Silent Hill F was announced, I think it was around the same time that Silent Hill the short message was announced.
All of those projects, all like Silent Hill 2, the remake, the short message, and F were like all kind of referenced around the same time.
But I just remember that when F and the short message were announced specifically, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it at the time. Since then, leading up until now, I thought they were the same thing.
Oh.
Like, I thought that the short message had like stuff that they were going to put in the game that just never made it, and that's what was original. Like, F was like a project name. And then short message came out, and then I was like, oh, okay, like this is the official version, because they both have similar visual themes that isn't in any of the other Silent Hill stuff.
Yeah.
They both take place in Japan.
Right.
Yeah. But they both revolve around like flowers and like vine stuff and what have you. So I always thought they were the same thing until now.
Yeah. No, I was aware that they were definitely different projects. What I was curious about, and I'm still kind of curious, is around the time that all these games were originally announced, there was like footage of a Silent Hill project. Maybe it got reconfigured or scrapped, or maybe it's still being worked on. I'll have to do some research, but there was footage I remember watching of like a in-game hub, like a main menu screen. That was a lot like a live service game. It was almost like a live service Silent Hill game. Not in the sense that it was like multiplayer or anything, but it was still a single player experience, but the whole idea was that like the game would change as time went on.
Oh, okay.
And that there would be like different episodes and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's still a thing, or maybe if I'm just remembering it wrong and maybe that was something else. But I thought it was like a horror, more specifically a Silent Hill game. But I actually think the Silent Hill F looks pretty interesting.
It does.
I mean, there wasn't any gameplay, so it's hard to say. But like just based on the trailer, and I don't speak Japanese, and as far as I know, all of the trailers for it that have released so far are only in Japanese. Unfortunately, like American me doesn't really understand what it is, but just visually, it seemed intriguing.
Right.
And allegedly, it's the first. I want to make sure I get the. I could be wrong. Well, there was a fun fact that IGN posted right after the trailer release, saying something along the lines of Silent Hill F being like the first rated M game in the Silent Hill franchise released in Japan.
Interesting.
Something along those lines. Maybe the exact detail is wrong, but it had something to do with it being the first rated M something in Japan.
I think I saw that as well. I didn't look into it as much because I was at work when I did see it. But I'm so curious because, I mean, first off, I just want to say that the game itself looks awesome.
Yeah.
I like the style visually. I like how it takes place in a very unique point in like Japanese time. I don't think it's modern day.
It doesn't look like it. I did find it, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It says Silent Hill F is the first in the series to get an 18 plus rating in Japan.
Wow. I don't know. Something about this, like Silent Hill, I've always found interesting just like for the idea and like the world around it. I've never really been super drawn towards the games. The only reason why I played the short message was because I thought it'd be good content. Mm-hmm. It's a horror game and it was free.
And Silent Hill was relevant at the
right.
time. Yeah.
But like the remake came out and I already had enough games on my plate and it just wasn't really my thing. But the new one, I'm not gonna lie, I think I'm gravitating towards it. I'm definitely curious enough to play it. But I'm also curious because like I'm just recently teaching myself the lore of Silent Hill. And I have like a decent understanding of it. But where the short message and Silent Hill F fall into that, that's where I kind of get lost because like from my knowledge, none of it took place in Japan. Like Silent Hill was a very designated location for specific reasons.
That's kind of been a big conversation I've seen go around for like people who've been, on the Silent Hill train since the very first game. Mm-hmm. And a big thing that comes up very often is sometimes they throw it out as like a fun fact. Sometimes they throw it out as like it's something that irritates them. But the first game is very different from the second game and all the other ones going forward. Yeah. And every single game takes a very different approach to tackling Silent Hill.
Which is kind of the point, though.
Yeah, because like it affects different people differently and so on and so forth. The first game was just very centered around like kind of like the real world and then the nightmare realm.
Yeah.
And more specifically a cult that was in Silent Hill and so on, But the second game just kind of, it like created a new aesthetic with like the heavy fog and creating new creatures and kind of making it seem as if the nightmare realm kind of existed within the real world, simultaneously.
Yeah.
And future, like the following developers and teams and stuff that worked on Silent Hill going forward gravitated and did their own version of what the second game did and kind of ignored what the first game did.
Right.
So lore-wise, it's kind of hard to... I mean, I'm sure there is like a way that they've retconned or like tied things together as time's gone on.
Yeah.
But for it to be like clean or super fluent could probably be a struggle to comprehend because of how different it changes from game to game.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if it's the situations where they're like, you know what, we're not really focusing on canon or continuity. We're more just like, we wanted to write a story that takes what we love about traditional Silent Hill, but throw it into a different environment, a different time.
Yeah.
We're not caring about a timeline. We're more just doing this based off of creative curiosity, which is fine. Like, nothing has to be canon. Nothing has to be like within one fluent timeline,
Right.
and that's okay. Like, sure, it's interesting when there's lore and a timeline and everything's connected, and a lot of people like them. There's why there's so many universes out there,
Right.
but that doesn't always have to be the case. Like the new, uh, oh no, I'm thinking of something else. But like just in general, things don't have to be canon. And that's okay. If that's what they're doing with this new one, then that's fine. If there is some kind of connecting lore, then that'd be good to know. But
Yeah.
it still just looks like a fascinating game, and I think it looks gnarly, and I like how unhinged it seems, which is something I like about Silent Hill. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something I'm looking forward to.
I a little off topic, but you were talking about like not everything having to be lore and it's okay for things to be different. One game that you don't really think about like the lore and stuff unless you're really paying attention that I find fascinating. And I've actually been listening to a lot of like video essays and podcasts and well, not a lot because not that many people have covered it, but more than I thought. Outlast has this really interesting way. Like you would think, if you're really not paying attention, the first game and the second game are like
Right.
super different settings, super different characters, antagonists, whatever. And hell, like it goes from like an asylum to like a cult
Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere. But the reason why or how those two games connect with each other or how Outlast Trials takes place back in like the I think like the 60s or
Okay.
and it's how it's like the start of it all and all of the different endings to the game kind of explain or nod to like the future games.
Yeah.
And that there's a free comic book series on like Red Barrel's website that you can like scroll through and it tells the story of like these two detectives that have been at like a lot of the different sites of like Outlast 1 and 2
Mm-hmm.
and kind of tell a story about like Red Barrel's version of MK Ultra and how the organization Markov created like their own quote unquote super soldiers of sorts, and it's really just people who have been mind controlled and yeah. But anyways, but I think that's an interesting approach to lore as well. It's like
Yeah.
you are telling a long and elaborate story, but you're able to very in a very clever way tie them together in stories that feel like they don't relate to each other. Like they're able to tell new and different stories each time
Right.
and tackle it in different ways, but like all you have to do is like sit down for 2 minutes and look through a couple files and you're like, whoa, this ties into this game,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so yeah, I think lore wise, it's interesting when some games approach it that way. And then obviously you can't always have it that way because then there's some games like Metal Gear Solid where like you're following very specific characters or like a lineage of characters and it's for the people who are super invested to them it's very important that they understand one end of the timeline and how it compares to the other end of the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, sorry, that was just my little
No, you're fine.
tangent. So one of the things I have on my list here, I'm going to go in order. We were talking a little bit about Hercules more specifically the Disney Hercules, the other day.
Yeah.
And, we were just talking about, like, how even though we weren't big Disney kids, there was a couple Disney movies like Treasure Planet. For me, Brother Bear was a big one. And then Hercules. Hercules is like every guy's, especially around our age, or, even guys a little older than us, who, when Hercules came out, was like, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And, like, we all wanted to be Hercules. We all wanted to be able to, like, hold these giant pillars over our heads. And he was just so fun and charismatic. And there's been talks about, like, doing what Disney does now and create a live action version of it. And it's like, they have to be, not only do they have to be careful, not that I don't think that they would be very careful, because they don't have that kind of track record so far, but, like, you have to cast a very specific person to play Hercules.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about Hercules too much, because obviously there's a lot I could say about Hercules. I do have a personal fan cast that I did refer or tell you. He's like, or two people that I think could do Hercules. One could probably do a lot more than the other one, but one specifically just looks like Hercules. But the reason I brought up Hercules is because a current live action movie that just had a trailer a little bit ago, I'm feeling a little different about. Because time after time, Disney spat out these live action remakes, and I'm like, no. No. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I can understand why they're making these remakes. My problem is that they're remaking the wrong movies.
Yeah.
They're remaking all of the big hits.
Yeah.
And I can get why to them that's like, duh. But what doesn't make sense is that, like, in a very technical way, what's redundant is that, like, moms and parents and whatever are still to this day showing their little kids Beauty and the Beast, Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, like the original ones.
Right.
And so it's like, there's no need to do that again. Why not do the ones that were really good but not as many people talk about?
Yeah.
Like Treasure Planet. I don't think Brother Bear would be a great idea, but if they really wanted to take a swing at it, actually, no, don't do that.
No.
Don't touch Brother Bear. Treasure Planet is probably the best contender, I think. I think if they did it right, it could be a really fun movie.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting to is Lilo and Stitch.
Right.
Trailer for it just dropped. I was really nervous. I was super nervous because I loved Lilo and Stitch when we were little.
Yeah.
I actually think it looks pretty good. I have a couple gripes, but I think it looks pretty good.
It looks like it can be a relatively fun movie.
Uh-huh.
And actually enjoyable. And it's taking a lot from what people enjoy about Stitch.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same voice actor. And
yeah, which, I mean, yeah, that's all great and all, but like you said, it's more of just, did they have to do it? No. Should they have? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, I feel like real Disney fans prefer the, like, original stuff.
Well, yeah.
And obviously Disney is more of a business and it cares less about, like, what fans want and more of just, like, what makes them money. This could be said about so many different industries, like video game industries, movie industries, what have you.
Right.
But it should all... I guarantee you that if all of these things were ran by actual fans, like people who actually gave a shit,
it'd be different.
It would like they wouldn't be like, oh, what's the next movie we could remake that like we just saw 3 years ago, like the new Moana live action remake.
That's ridiculous.
Right, like it's just another ego boost for The Rock. It's more money for Disney, which honestly I'm not even sure about, because they even just dropped the new Snow White movie and it's not doing good.
Is it out?
I think it is. Isn't it? I could be wrong, but I heard something about like how. Wait, what am I thinking of? Is it Snow White? Shit. There's
March 21st this week.
Oh,
But
for some reason I thought someone said that it wasn't like doing well, or
well, I mean, I'm sure there was like early showings maybe, or like private showings.
oh,
But I mean, a lot of people just haven't been receiving it very well. Like,
yeah, but but that can go for so many things. Like all these remakes. Again, Lilo and Stitch kind of looks like it has more hype, but like 90% of these remakes, no one wants.
yeah.
No, I haven't seen one person react to How to Train Your Dragon.
Well, that's DreamWorks.
I don't care. It's still the same premise. Like they're remaking it, thinking like, oh, it's the greatest thing we can do.
Yeah,
it's not.
I have another gripe with that movie too, because not only is it beat for beat the same movie,
yeah,
and the first movie, sure, it's been quite a bit, but in grand scheme, did not come out that long ago.
right.
And again, is probably something that a lot of people are still showing their kids, like all three movies till this day.
Yeah.
But it's even directed by the same guy.
What's the point?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Like, you have all this money and creativity. You have the ability to make something brand new, but instead you want to be lazy. Do the exact same thing you did not that long ago.
Right.
But with a slightly bigger budget.
Yeah, like remakes should be going. They should. Again, I get it. Like it can be repeated or whatever. Like I understand that it's for money reasons. Yeah. I get that. But remakes ethically should be going to things that deserve it. Like things that have been lost to time. And like there were some people that were skeptical about Nosferatu being remade.
Yeah.
But the thing is there was only, like, aside from one remake of Nosferatu that no one knew about in the 70s, and quite frankly wasn't that great. And it also was steered away from Nosferatu a little bit because they even used names of like characters from Dracula instead. But again, the original Nosferatu is like a movie that's 100 years old at this point.
Yeah.
And what's left of it and where you can watch it is like a resalvaged version of the movie.
Yeah.
Because of like a whole bunch of lawsuits and stuff that happened when it originally came out. So, but we were also lucky enough that someone talented and was passionate enough about the original story and cared about the source material was able to bring it to light in our new generation, which that should be the focus. The focus should be to recover a story.
Yeah.
But with passion behind it. Because a bad example of someone trying to bring a story into a new generation is Mortal Kombat. The new Mortal Kombat movie came out a couple years ago, and then there's a sequel that's, gonna be right around the corner. But the thing is the first movie was not good. And the second movie's probably, unless they change a lot, something, anything in between. What I'm assuming is because they're bringing in Johnny Cage and stuff, fingers crossed that they could salvage it, that this second movie actually will be like the tournament or the start of it. kind of like in Mortal Kombat 9 or like the original Mortal Kombat games, when you think about like these characters being brought from by Raiden to the tournament.
Yeah.
That's what I want out of Mortal Kombat. And I'm assuming maybe that's where the second movie will go. And there's a chance they could salvage it. But the thing is one, casting. I'm not a fan of the casting so far.
Yeah.
I
think I only liked...
Like, I like Carl Urban in a lot of stuff, but I don't think he's going to be Johnny Cage.
Yeah, I mean, even from the first movie, I think I only liked 2 people.
I like the guy who was casted as Sub-Zero.
I do too.
I don't like the suit of Sub-Zero, but I like him.
Yeah, is it just me, like, especially after replaying Ghost of Tsushima, did he kind of look Mongolian? I don't know why, but I feel like his armor...
Why does that matter?
Because he's not Mongolian.
Oh, his armor being Mongolian. I thought you meant the guy.
No, like Sub-Zero. Sorry. That's what I was trying to get to, is his armor looked not...
I mean, I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of things about the first movie that don't make a whole lot of sense. But...
Okay, fine. But that's what, 3 people out of the whole casting that I actually enjoyed as said characters?
Wait, we only named Sub-Zero.
Well, yeah. So you named Sub-Zero, but the 2 people that I didn't mind, like I didn't necessarily have an issue with them, was the guys who played Liu Kang and Kung Lao.
Those 2 I like, and I especially like that now because people, for some reason, people gave him a lot of shit. But the guy who played Liu Kang in the first movie, they said he wasn't big enough, even though he was shredded for that movie.
I don't know.
He is coming back in the second movie, and he is much bulkier.
Okay, but like aside from the video games, like a kung fu master is not like a massive person.
He wouldn't be like bodybuilder size.
They're all really slim and small.
Right, but I agree. I like those 2 as well. No one else I really liked at all.
No, not one.
I don't like their Raiden. Raiden and Noob Saibot are like my 2, and Scorpion, but I love Raiden.
Mm-hmm.
I did not like Raiden at all.
Well, see,
he was boring. He was so boring.
And that's another thing is, like, don't get me wrong, I liked the guy they chose for Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
But he isn't someone I would choose for Sub-Zero.
Okay.
Like,
I mean, they're if they do the whole him becoming Noob Saibot thing, then there will be a different Sub-Zero.
Well, sure, but that's still him against a Scorpion that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I like that actor. I'm not familiar with his name.
Yeah.
But one, he's been used in a lot of things. Like, he was used in a lot of movies in a short period of time.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like he was overused to some
that
degree.
happens from time to time where you see like a same face.
But that's kind of like what I was saying about Pedro Pascal with certain roles. Like, I feel like they were like, oh, this guy's hyped and this is like a popular character. Let's merge those 2 things together. No. Sub-Zero and Scorpion should have been, like, they're the face of Mortal Kombat.
Right. They should be like the most interesting.
And they should be like high priority when it comes to like, we need to make sure that we get the casting right for this.
Yeah.
I don't care if like you resort to like casting professional martial artists or stuntmen and then like you could do voiceover, whatever.
Right.
But come on. You guys got lazy when it came to Scorpion and then you found someone who kind of matched the vibe for Sub-Zero, but I just wasn't feeling it.
And for me, when it comes to taking, this is a little off topic, but you brought up Scorpion. I wasn't like a huge fan of Scorpion's look. They were trying to do this thing where he looked like a samurai or like a Ronin kind of thing, which I get. I think it's a lazy go-to to do something like that. Which again brings me back to my original. So actually, to finish my point, I think if it comes to taking creative liberties, you either have to go all out and really try to do something that still expresses the same thing as the original idea, but does something new with it. Like the Batman is a great example with Robert Pattinson, because while it's inspired by a bunch of different stuff, it's a very new take on Batman.
Yeah.
But it's a huge swing that still accomplished the same Batman.
Right.
It's rather you do that or you really just go to source material. So if you're not going to take the huge swing, then just do Scorpion from the video game. So just resorting to like, oh, I want him to look like a samurai. It's like I could point at 1,000 concept artists that probably don't give a shit about Scorpion that would probably do the same thing.
Yeah.
But back to my original point is that there's no passion. Like, I don't know much about the guy who directed the Mortal Kombat movie, but there was clearly not enough passion to tell the story that the fans love about Mortal Kombat.
Right.
Same thing with like the Halo series. It's like they quite literally came out and they said, we don't give a shit about the original one. We're telling our own version of Halo that just looks like Halo, which that wasn't even true. When remakes need to be made, it's just safe to take a second look and be like if we want this to register with people, right, we got to like, you know, like The Last of Us is a great example, telling a story that the existing fans like and that new fans will like.
Yeah.
But back to Lilo and Stitch, they're kind of along the lines of like creative liberties. It looks like a different movie-ish. It's the same story. Stitch comes to Earth, a little girl sees it, thinks it's like a shooting star. She makes a wish to have a best friend.
Yeah.
And she finds a friend in a lunatic alien.
You got a friend in me.
Wrong movie.
Yeah, I know.
And there seems to be a lot of scenes that are new, like that weren't in the original. Some that are just different. Like there was the scene of, it's been so long since I've seen Lilo and Stitch, so I'm not remembering names very well. But Lilo's older sister, when she's like dragging Stitch away in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of it just being like Stitch, like, you know, squirming and whatnot, the fridge like swings open and smacks her. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I hope the whole movie doesn't do the same thing that like Moana 2 did, where it's like they're trying to just cram it, you know, full with like slapstick humor to make little kids laugh.
Right.
Because then it's not fun anymore. It's not telling an interesting story. One creative liberty that I've seen some people complain about, but I don't see any other way around it, is remember in the original movie when the two aliens came back and they were like looking for Stitch, and one just puts on a mustache and a hat, and then the other one puts on a dress.
Yeah.
And they're acting like a couple. So in this one, it's for a very quick second, but you see them through like a portal.
Yeah.
And they've got like holographic disguises on.
Yeah.
Which it's boring, like, and it's a very easy, safe move. But I can see why they did it, because just based on what one of the aliens looked like, it would have been really jarring to look at him walking around like with a wig on and a dress and trying to make us believe, like the audience believe, that the people in the world were convinced that that was a woman.
Well, see, I would have,
unless they really leaned into the humor part, like they would, like, you know, like a satire or something where it's like they were kind of making fun of the people by like the people and interacting with them being like, oh, how are you doing, ma'am?
No, what I think, it's because it would be live action, I think instead of going down the boring route, which again, I agree, I know why they did it, but instead of going down the route, it's like, oh, let's keep the same premise and just have them like have a more believable disguise, lean into the fact that it's clear that they're not human.
Mm-hmm.
So they're walking around with like shirts and hats and wigs and mustaches and what have you, but it's obvious they're not human.
Yeah.
And everyone around them, they're paused. They're like deers in headlights. Like they're all just staring at these aliens, but no one's like screaming or running away. They like the aliens will interact and be like, "Hey, fellow citizen, like I'm looking for this thing," and but they just go along with it. But it's clear that they're only going along with it because they think they might die if they don't. Like something along those
Yeah,
lines.
but the only thing is that again, that's what I'm saying is like it would be that's kind of like that middle ground of me having a hard time believing that like they would still get away with that at the end of the scene.
But then that's what leads into like someone calling the authorities, and then they call in the
But
big.
but they already have an arc of how that happens anyway.
Yeah, I know.
So what I'm saying is that like you rather one go to the source material just like they did it in the original and they really like play into the humor of it so that like the people that they interact with them seem ridiculously stupid
Yeah.
and they really play into that kind of humor like you would like in literally like the Scary Movie series or something, or you do that big swing like they're doing in the movie where they do a completely new disguise arc.
Yeah.
Because like you know it does give us a different type of scene with like the guy who drops his ice cream and whatnot.
Right.
But ooh, it's raining outside.
Yeah, it is. Raining hard.
Yeah, it is. Dang. Anyways, but I'm interested. I'll probably see this one in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be fun. I mean, I would like to maybe see another trailer just to like finalize that decision and be like, do I want to go see Lilo and Stitch in theaters? But the little girl who's playing Lilo, she seems like she'll do a great job.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they chose a girl that was like Lilo's age.
Yeah.
You know, like they didn't do like a
They didn't resort to like making her older and somehow working that into the story.
rather that or choosing a girl that was clearly older but like playing a younger girl.
Yeah.
It's like no, I like that they were able to cast a girl that's like the accurate age. And maybe they'll like dim her lines down a little bit from time to time unless she's really good with lines.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's fun because you know, then they're not making those poor decisions that make
Right.
people steer away from these movies. Like they almost did with Snow White, because I don't know if you remember when they first announced Snow White and there was like set pictures and stuff. The dwarves were just like people. They were just like people in like ragged clothes.
Oh.
And people were like, no, that like those are not the seven dwarfs. And then it wasn't until way later that they finally like caved and they CGI'd them all. Similar to like the Sonic situation. Like he got so much hate that they were like, we can't.
I still would have just made them like dwarf actors.
No, but like these were like full grown people.
I know, but like I just don't understand why you wouldn't just go down the route of choosing dwarf actors.
Well, at that point, I don't know. But I like they look like the dwarves now. Like they've got the big noses and the big ears and
yeah,
they're little and but now they're kind of scary to look at.
Well, that's the thing is because now they've hit this like uncanny valley thing where they're like what am I trying to get out with this? Like there's certain things that you can't bring from animation to live action, and every single time they do, there's something off about it. Yeah. Like when they brought Lion King to live action, there are these realistic animals with like human-like expressions. Right. It's weird. It doesn't make sense.
Similar to like the Jungle Book.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I feel like there's another example that I'm completely missing out on right now.
I think I have an example that counters what you're saying. That I think fixes the problem.
Okay.
The movie Mowgli.
Yeah.
So Andy Serkis took the approach of using faces that were similar to the actual actors.
Yeah.
So I still think they looked like the animals they were trying to be. But there was like this very strange,
Uncanny Valley.
like you could look at that panther and you're like, that kind of looks like Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Or like look at Baloo and be like, whoa, that's Andy Serkis.
Right, but it also but it has its own. Oh, there's a term that the Corridor crew used. Poetic. It's like when you add in like it's got its own flair.
Okay.
And you kind of use the excuse that it's there's a term that you use to kind of state that like this is our excuse for why it works.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is I enjoyed it more in the Mowgli movie than I did in the Jungle Book live action movie. And same thing with like the live action Lion King. And it's another reason why I'm afraid of a live action Hercules, because there's so much that just worked as an animated movie.
Yeah, like how are they gonna do oh my god. Why am I blanking? Pegasus. That wasn't his name though.
Yeah, he was called Pegasus.
Oh, okay, yeah. But like that was such an expressive
How are they going to do the
horse.
little demons?
I mean, they're just going to CGI those.
Why no? But like it's going to look dumb.
It's going to look weird, yeah.
But that's the thing is like they work as they are as cartoons for a reason.
Right.
And with Lilo and Stitch, I mean, sure they're aliens, so you kind of have that weird excuse and it's okay.
But it's hard, but kind of back to what I was talking about, like those two being in dresses. It's like, it's hard to tell that same story with the same designed characters in live action and make them believable, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to, as the audience, to believe that the people in the movie believe that these are like that Stitch is a dog.
But like
it's
now
like he's clearly not a dog.
Right. But now going back to Snow White, it's like, okay, you're being introduced to these 7 dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
First off, depending on how you want to go about it, like with rather like history or just a fairy tale or what have you, there's a chance that you coming from a castle or a kingdom of some kind and you've never encountered a dwarf, it could be mind-boggling. Like, oh my gosh, that's a dwarf. I've never seen one before. Mm-hmm. And to the characters themselves, it could be just as strange encountering a very realistic dwarf. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to insult dwarves. I'm just trying to say, like, if you've never seen one or knew that they existed, it has that same, like, factor. But now you have this strange... Now, not only is it weird to the characters, but it's weird to the audience because we have to see these almost normal-sized beings that are apparently dwarves.
Right.
But they look freaky. Like, they come straight out of, like a playtime horror genre thing.
Yeah, it's this tricky thing that I think Disney keeps trying to... I think to them, like, their idea is that, like, they put these things out there and one of them will hit. But they just have not caught on to the fact that, like you said earlier, like, no one wants these.
Right.
Little Mermaid came out. Everyone were, like, no one was excited.
Not
like
one.
All of the decisions they were making, people were just like, no. Snow White, people were saying no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the first Lion King was not well received.
No, it was not.
It like the first couple weeks, I remember working at Home Depot and people were talking about it quite a bit, but just as time went on, people were just not on board.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, the Mufasa movie did better in terms of like public reception. People were kind of like, why? Like, you're telling an origin, changing the origin to a character in The Lion King and this and this and that. You know, it was an origin to something that didn't have an origin, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
They keep putting out these things that no one's asking for when they could probably be putting their time into new stories. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can't remember the last live action Disney movie in theaters. that was not a remake?
Off the top of my head, I can't name one.
I almost said Red One, but that's not a Disney movie.
It's kind of written like one.
Unless you count the stuff that's owned by Disney, like the Alien franchise, or now
No.
the Transformers. But.
No. No, I was just trying to think
But
of
again,
like
like
an original...
those were like pre-existing IPs.
Is
so like...
Enchanted Disney?
Enchanted.
Isn't that what it's called?
Oh, with Amy Adams?
Yeah.
Woof. I think it is. I think that's a Disney.
That's the most recent live action Disney movie.
I'm gonna double check that really quick.
Enchanted 2.
Oh, Enchanted
Wasn't it Disney?
2. Oh my god, Disenchanted.
Disenchanted.
It's on Disney Plus. Yeah, it's a Disney movie.
Well, there you go.
2022.
Still. You know how many movies came out since
A
then?
sequel, though.
But that's the first thing that came to mind.
True.
Something I was going to say about remakes. Honestly, I think that the first thing you should aim at when it's like, okay, like, if you're in this creative mind of like, I want to retell a story, do one that was bad.
Oh, yeah, and redo it.
Take something that was rather like poorly received, or it was like a good idea, it just didn't hit the mark the right way, and just do it again.
Right.
I wish I could have something to back this up, because nothing specific comes to mind, because everything that I can think of that's remake related are all things that people are like, oh, they should remake this movie, and I want to punch them in the face because they should not. Like, I can't tell you how many people want Ferris Bueller's Day Off remade.
No.
I swear to God, if someone remakes...
If any of the John Hughes movies are remade, I would be so mad.
No, I think there might only be one John Hughes movie that has the potential for a remake, but it's not Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Which one?
16 Candles.
No. Don't touch 16 Candles. Or Pretty in Pink.
Maybe... Was it Pretty in Pink I was thinking of?
Nope.
I don't know.
Don't do it.
No, but I'm just saying, like... Yeah, but again, that's still my point, is everyone's like, oh, they should remake this, or oh, they should make a live action version of this. Don't!
Yeah.
Do it with something that sucked. Like, everyone's like fan casting like who they want to be live action versions of The Incredibles. Don't fucking touch sorry, excuse my language. Like, don't touch The Incredibles. Please.
Yeah.
They're good as is for a reason. And they would look so dumb. Can you imagine that visually? Everyone would look, and I say this being like a comic book fan, like as if there's not a bunch of people.
But again, like you were saying, like they were designed the way that they are. The suits are designed the way they are for animation.
Yes.
And putting that into live action would just be difficult.
Yeah.
And very hard to believe. There is another teaser we got quite some time ago now, at the time of recording this. I mean, not that long ago, but it's kind of had its time in the spotlight already. But similar topic, but for me it's like reversed, is the new Shrek teaser. So that came out, and obviously everyone was like, ugh, like, oh, it looks disgusting, blah, 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 blah. Shrek looks stupid. Honestly, it does not look that bad. Sure, Shrek looks a little different. Fiona and Donkey, people kept saying Donkey looks homeless. Donkey's always been like super scruffy, and he's got big buck teeth, and like, I don't know what.
He's a donkey.
He's a donkey. Yeah. And Shrek.
Donkeys in real life look homeless.
But Shrek does look a little different. But what it's like, you know how long ago it's been since the Shrek movie came out?
Oh, long ass.
I want to say more than 10 years.
You might be right.
I'm going to look this up because it was Shrek 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Forever After. 2010. It's 2025.
So 15 years ago.
Yeah. So technology's changed. people have changed.
To be fair, you could use a counter argument because The Incredibles had a 15-year difference as well.
But Pixar, I kind of hold Pixar to a different standard.
Yeah.
They're, I don't know, because DreamWorks has already shown that they're trying different things.
Yeah.
Even Puss in Boots, the second movie, looks
so good.
drastically different from the first movie.
Which is
it's a completely different art style and everything.
Yeah.
So Shrek kind of just updating technology, you know, and retouching up some stuff. Sure, things are going to look a little different, but it doesn't look bad. To me, they don't look that bad. And what I'm more focused on, because Shrek is known for its comedy.
Yeah.
It's known for great writing and fun characters. If I still get those things, and what knowing DreamWorks will probably be a visually stunning movie,
Yeah.
I'm going to have a great time.
You know, here are the things that if it has these things, then I'll enjoy it no matter what. I kind of hope that this new one does what the first movie did. The second one kind of did it, but I feel like they lost it after the second one.
Yeah.
But using a lot of fourth wall breaking references.
Yeah.
I kind of hope they go back into like this is technically a family movie, but there's a lot of like real life and adult innuendos that the adults will be able to enjoy. That's all I care for. I only have one question because like the animation, sure, it's different, whatever. If the movie is what people aren't expecting, then great. I only have one question. How many children... Okay, so it's one question connected to another. How many children did Shrek have?
I think people remember it differently.
Well, okay, he had the dream about having like a ton.
Right, I think that's what a lot of people remember.
But he had more than one.
I think he had like 4?
Still.
3 or 4?
Still.
Right.
Because of the picture that they showed, where are the other 3?
What picture?
The picture that they showed of Shrek, Fiona, Donkey, and a girl ogre. Everyone's thinking that that's Shrek's like teenage daughter.
It is.
Where are the other 3 children?
Did you not watch the full teaser trailer?
There's a trailer?
Yeah, it's like a whole thing. It's a whole clip.
Oh, now I feel stupid.
No, and it kind of answers a question that you're talking about like modern day references and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it opens up with them asking the mirror. And the mirror opens up to essentially what's TikTok. And it's all of these Shrek memes. And they get to one Shrek meme and Shrek's like, "Oh my gosh." And all of them huddle up around him. And his daughter's like, "Ugh." And Donkey says some quippy thing, and Fiona's like, "I think that makes you look kind of good." And that's kind of like the end of it. And then it says all of the cast members by that like famous narration voice of Shrek. But yeah, that's his daughter. It's one of his kids.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like, why did they like? I feel weird that they brought in like a character in that clip, even though I haven't seen it. It's strange that they chose one. Like, is there a reason they chose the specific one? Why didn't they choose all 3 children? Like, why didn't they all, like, crowd around?
Well, in tandem to the whole modern day references, what if it's like she's the one kid that's, like, too old to be at home, but she's still there? You know?
That could be it.
Like, it could even be a nod to the fact that, like, people around our age and even older are struggling to live on their own because of the economy and stuff like that. So it could very easily be like the other kids like grew up and they did stuff, and she's like,
one's working like a 9 to 5 like corporate job. One's working like one's working. Everyone wants to do.
One's got like a castle or something like that,
like living their dreams, and then you have the one who's like, yeah, but like, work is like so much work.
Yeah,
duh.
Yeah, and then there's just his daughter who's like, yeah, but like they don't ask for rent and I can just be home. My mom makes food for me.
My dad gives me a few like mud shells to go pay for some whatever. I don't know what their currency is. I don't know what.
Well, seeing that there was a castle, I'm assuming they have like coin.
I don't know. Sometimes I forget. Well, that's the thing is my brain when it comes to Shrek, I remember 1, 2, Puss in Boots. That's it. My brain completely forgets the fact that there is a 3 and a 4. Because 3, I only remember one clip out of the entire movie. And the 4th one, I remember one character's fat forehead. That's it.
The only thing I remember from the 3rd movie was that there was like a young prince or something. They were trying to like retrace the steps of the first movie by like having their person they had to take care of.
Well, yeah, because
but he was like a young prince or something.
Because the 3rd and the 4th movie both fell into the tropes of like time travel and dimension stuff.
Yeah, because the second or the last. Wait, or am I thinking
the 3rd one was time travel? The 4th one was an alternate reality.
So the 4th one was the one with Rumpelstiltskin, right?
Where he changed reality to where Shrek never saved Fiona.
Yeah, and she became like the more barbarian.
She was like a leader of an ogre civilization.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so that's all I remember.
Yeah.
And then I remember the babies.
But that's the thing is my brain, I don't know if it's just because it's all it wants to remember, but I only remember 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then I forget about everything else. Mm-hmm. So like when people bring up like, oh, Shrek and Fiona have a castle, since when? Like that's how my brain thinks about it.
I don't know if they have a castle.
No, I think they do. I think Fiona inherited her riches, and I think they like
because just from that little clip, it didn't look like it. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but it looked like they were living in the swamp.
Maybe I just need to rewatch Shrek.
My point being is that it didn't look. People were like, "Oh, he looked up." It's same thing with like that Superman thing we talked about, where like there was that close up of Superman flying, and people were like, "Oh, he's cross-eyed," or "Oh, like oh, too much CGI or whatever." And James Gunn was like, "There's literally no CGI in the shot."
Yeah. Which is still crazy.
Yeah, but it's just same thing. Like people are overreacting, and I was like, "This, it's not like Sonic. It doesn't look like that."
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys are trying to change. He still looks like Shrek. You could still if you just gave me like a screenshot of that moment, I'd be like, yeah, they look a little different. But it's like it's still Shrek. I can still tell you that that's Shrek.
If you ask me, because I've even seen people who like they tried like quote unquote fixing the still frame to make it look more traditional.
All they do is like they widen his eyes a little bit.
That's the thing is like they fixed all of them. I saw no difference.
Yeah.
Like yes, they look different, but not enough to where it's like honestly, I think the only one who actually looks different is Shrek. That's it. I think like his eyes are a little bit bigger. Mm-hmm. And his proportion from his body to his head is different. That's it. Everyone else, well, besides the daughter, she doesn't really count. Yeah. She's her own canon.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal.
No, I agree.
People just want something to hype over and to yell about, and they're choosing the wrong things. People should be harping on Mortal Kombat. No one is harping on Mortal Kombat. They should be harping on that, not Shrek.
So, Brandon, we've talked about remakes.
Yeah.
We've talked about things not looking that bad. Mm-hmm. We've talked about things that people want to be live action that shouldn't. All of these kind of, in some weird way, all come together and we can talk about one show that just wrapped up.
Yeah.
Invincible. It just had its last episode. We watched it. Mm-hmm. It was great. Mm-hmm. Super sick fight scene.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot to unpack, especially like comic book wise and story narrative. There's a lot to unpack.
Also production.
Yes, production. I know you have a lot to say about Invincible.
Good things.
Good things. I do just want to kind of just to wrap up what we've just been talking about. There are a couple things I want to point out. There was clearly a production change. Something's different because there wasn't the mid-season hiatus this time around. Something about the quality in the animation is slightly different. a lot of people right off the bat were like, oh, it's garbage. It looks completely different. I would not say it looks completely different. Like, if no one pointed it out, I probably wouldn't have noticed.
I think there's only 2 scenes out of the entire season where I might have been like, oh, maybe they cut a corner right there. But that's
same
it.
thing. Yeah, I was going to say, like, if no one had pointed it out, there were a couple moments where I would have been like, that doesn't look like to the standard that, like, they've held up before. And there's even kind of something about the last episode, too, that I kind of want to get to. But there were 2 big standouts. Maybe if there was a couple others that I missed it, and it's fine. There were 2 that I spotted. One of them was so crazy that I found on social media, like just doom scrolling through social media. Someone like pointed it out, and I had to rewatch the episode to see if it was real, and it was real. The second one I found on my own, and other people have pointed it out as well. The first thing is that there's a moment when Mark and Eve are sitting on his roof and just having a conversation, and somewhere, I don't know if they like moved his asset somewhere like after editing or rendering the scene or whatever, but there's a point when Mark is kind of like rocking a little bit slowly back and forth, like just as the conversation goes, like his body kind of like shifts back and forth a little bit. And there's a point when he starts to shift backwards and his back, like where his shoulder, the back of his shoulder and like his arm is, like his tricep, cut off. Like it's almost like there's an invisible line that he like hides behind.
Oh.
And like his file cuts off. And and again, that's the thing that was pointed out on social media. I would have never noticed.
I didn't even notice.
And I went back and I was like, holy shit, it's real. The second one that I noticed, and we are going to be talking about spoilers. If anyone doesn't want to listen to Invincible spoilers, if probably the rest of the episode, we'll probably be talking about Invincible.
Yeah.
So that's your warning. At the end of the second to last episode, episode 7, and then all throughout episode 8 was a fight between Mark and Conquest. Somewhere like in the midway point of the episode, Eve wakes up from her coma and she intervenes in the fight. She starts kicking ass at first,
right,
until Conquest kind of is like, he gets his kick back and he fucks her up. But there's a moment where he's kind of like holding her fists away from him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a bottom up shot. There's a shot like the camera's like in between them, kind of at like knee level, looking up at them from below.
Okay.
And it's like a 2-second shot. But in that shot, because Conquest has this giant scar across his face that goes through his eye, and he's got one dead eye.
Yeah.
In this shot looking up, he has both eyes.
Really?
He says something to her, and both eyes are fully rendered and colored in. And he has 2 eyes. And again, you would not notice it unless you're super paying attention. But I spotted it. And I was like, oh, no. Come on, guys. It's like, I don't know how you miss that. Like, he has only one eye.
Yeah.
Who sat there and added in another eye.
Right.
And accidentally left it in. But so those are the only 2 that I know of for sure. And in terms of like quality wise, there are times when, like, even looking back at like the first season is probably like prime example. Mm-hmm. There were some scenes where like Mark would be moving across a room and they would put more life into the way he moved. Like they'd put more gestures in his arms or like the way he walks, so it feels more organic, or any other character. Whilst in this episode, they resort to like Oliver. I'm sure it's probably why it happened. You know how many times like his mom tells him like, what did I say about flying around the house? Mm-hmm. That's probably a shortcut. They could take his file and make him move across the room without walking. Because in animation, walk cycles are like notorious for being ridiculously complicated.
Yeah.
And just other characters as well. Like they'll be having a conversation and their body's not moving at all, like the whole time. Well, it's like sometimes they'll do like micro movements, or their head will turn to just look at something, or there's just more going on in the scene. That came out weird. There's more going on in the scene, and but this time around, especially even in that last episode when there was a lot going on, there was a scene where Eve wakes up and she's like hovering over her bed, and Cecil walks in and no one's moving. Yeah. She's just in the air, frozen, her mouth's moving, and Cecil, same thing. He's not even blinking, you know. Which there's moments I have noticed like that throughout the show. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's because of the hiatus. They like had to punch out like a bunch of episodes at like simultaneously. But unfortunately, I did notice those things. But for me, it did not take away from the quality of the show at all. Yeah. It was still very exciting to watch. It's a great written show. Personally, I think this third season was way better than the second season. I think the second season, even though it had its like ups and downs, it just was rather slow. Yeah, for me. But this third season, even with its issues, I think was an even better season and had a great story to tell. And the last episode was like a crazy great fight scene. Yeah. It touched on a very interesting aspect of Invincible from the very little that I do know about the comic books. Like the whole point of why in the comics Rob Kirkman created the black and blue suit, you know, kind of like in tandem with Spider-Man in his black suit. Right. It kind of shows in that last episode. Yeah. And, you know, he finally has his moment where he beats Conquest and he sits there with Oliver and he's like, you know, you were right. He's like, if anyone threatens our family again or puts them in risk, I will not hesitate to kill them. Yeah. Which is fun because there was a couple moments when he clearly had that chance. And I was constantly just like, Mark, he's going to fucking kill people. Yeah. Kill him. Yeah. Like, I love it when comic book characters, especially like Batman's a great example of like being able to overcome all odds and still not have to kill anyone. But Mark is just in this situation where he's forced to go up against people that like who really like push his like morals. Right. Yeah. Like he's again, like I'm a Superman advocate. Like Superman would wipe the floor with any of these motherfuckers. Yeah. But Superman has that power. Like, he could, I don't care if anyone's like a Viltrumite enthusiast or biased person or whatever. Superman could take Conquest out of the picture probably without killing him somehow. He could probably subdue Conquest. But Mark, because he's not at that level, you know, he has to, you know, if someone's stronger than him, but he has the ability to kill them and end the fight right then and there, maybe he should do it.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those moments where it's like, if you're facing someone who's like bigger and badder than you, right? What kind of steps are you going to take? Like, you're not Batman. You don't have like an arsenal of like millions and billions of dollars worth of gadgets.
Or even the IQ to like strategize the situation.
Right, but like right then and there when it's like, okay, I have this level of power and this guy has this level of power. Yeah. What he's capable of doing is world ending. Yeah. Like if Conquest wanted to.
Like if he took down Mark in that fight, it would be over for everyone.
Right. Yeah. The world would be screwed. And you wouldn't even have to call the rest of Viltrum to be there. Yeah. Conquest could do it alone.
Just like Omni-Man did to that plane in the first season. Right. Fuck, that was such a cool scene.
But it's like in that moment, it's like, do I risk trying to subdue him in risk of losing more? Or do I do what is like controversial, but like screw controversy for the sake of like saving the world? Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, like if I was in Mark's shoes, like if I was a superhero at that level and what have you, it would probably be difficult because it's like, I don't want to kill people. I don't want to take a life. That's not mine to take. And that's just not the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But in like the easiest terms, one life for millions.
Yeah.
So
Billions.
So conquest, and you're not only saving the billions of people on planet Earth, but let's say Conquest 1 took over Earth and Viltrum sent Conquest somewhere else to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So then that's another billions of people, trillions, cotillions, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it could have kept going, and Mark could just end it right then and there. And
right.
Yes, it sucks, but it's like, even Batman needs to kill people every now and then.
Yeah. Which kind of leads into like the interesting twist at the end where like we thought Conquest was dead.
Yeah.
But I guess he's still somewhere in there. He's still kicking a little bit, even though his head's caved in.
Well, that's
and Cecil. I'm curious of what it is. I think he said what the point was.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to see that like if he heals and if he wakes up, they want to learn whatever it is they can to like defend themselves from Viltrum.
Yeah.
Which he's not going to give Cecil what he wants.
No.
You think Conquest is going to tell him? No. But like, sure, he was like, oh, if he moves any muscle in his body, like blow the whole place up. That's not stop Conquest. Yeah. I mean, his head's caved in, so it's not like Conquest can do much anyways. But does that mean Cecil's going to heal him?
No. So, okay, well, see, that's the thing when it comes to
is there like something
the lore of like Viltrum and like Viltrumites, is that you can kill a Viltrumite, but if you don't like fully kill them, they will come back no matter what. Viltrumites have this odd healing factor to where it still takes time for them to heal like humans, but they can almost heal from anything as long as there's something left. So like with Conquest, yes, his head's caved in, but there's
so much brain matter
left.
There's
just enough for his head to reconform and for him to like do something.
It's probably why he's got that giant gash in his face to begin with.
Right. Actually, yes, because the this isn't spoiling anything because it's his like origin, but like Conquest got his missing arm and that scar from those things that, remember when Mark was reading the book that his
like
dad read,
the dinosaur things.
They're like these weird creatures on a planet that has such high gravity that their bodies are so dense. Conquest was sent to eradicate them and failed.
It didn't do a very good job.
They ate his arm and they like gashed his eye all berserk style. Yeah, he came back from that. They just can't regrow limbs, obviously.
Yeah. They can kind of just put back together what they have.
Right.
Got it.
To an extreme degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, Conquest is not dead. But there's also this thing to where it's more towards Alan, and it technically applies to other characters throughout the Invincible universe.
Okay.
But primarily Alan. But there's like this trope of people who like get brutally injured and then they come back a little stronger than they were prior.
Okay.
Kind of like a broken bone. But Alan, it's like his is kind of like amplified. So every single time Alan gets injured to like a deadly effect and then comes back, he's like 6 to 10 times stronger and bigger than he was before.
Almost like a dampened down version of Doomsday.
And I mentioned this in the last episode, and I'll mention it again. It's so hard to talk about these things because I know what happens throughout the whole like Invincible story.
Right.
But I can't say it.
So but I'm glad that I've never read Invincible comics because
You get to experience.
I get
all
to
of this.
experience all of this stuff. But like even when we thought Eve died,
Yeah.
that was fucking gnarly,
Right?
and I was shocked, and I was almost mad for a second. Not because like, oh, they killed her, but there's like a trend that I actually haven't seen it happen in quite a while. I do know that I've seen a lot of shows in particular where they always, right when the love interest finally comes, or like the two main characters finally get what they want, or like if the guy finally gets the girl, right when that happens, it gets taken away.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that a lot. There's a lot of like in-war comedies similar to The Office, or that are clearly trying to replicate The Office, that do that, where like they try to introduce a love interest and they take it away right when it happens, and it just, I was like, rather one, stop,
Yeah.
like don't do it, or or find something different to do, you know. But so for a second I was almost just really mad. I was like, this shit again?
Yeah.
Really? Like we get one whole season with Eve and Mark as a couple finally, and you're just gonna like literally rip her heart out? Like, what is that? But and then she like healed or whatever and
Yeah.
became God mode for a whole 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Which was kind of endearing because like there was the point at the end where they both kind of told each other like, I literally would have died if it weren't for you, and
Right.
the other one was like, me too. And so that was kind of cute, and it was nice that they were able to come together and like bond over that
Yeah.
at the end. But yeah, for a whole like what felt like forever, I was just mad. I was like, really? Eve's dead now? God damn.
I'm honestly, this is kind of fucked up for me to say this. I'm glad they did that, only because
Like the twist, or
well, just that whole sequence of like what happens to Eve.
to show
and,
like what she can do.
Well, not only that, that's just the peak of it. I'm not going to say anything specific, but there are going to be other moments where you're going to be like, I can't believe. You're rather going to think, I can't believe this is in the story.
Yeah.
I've never seen this done in a superhero story before.
Right.
Or I can't believe this character would ever do something like this. And it's nuts to think of like how certain people, like what kind of things that they experience. Like all I could think about watching the episode is there's going to be a point where Eve is like missing half of her head, and like she's going to have a giant hole in her torso. I wonder if they're going to like rather like water that down or maybe scrap it because it's like too violent, and like maybe because depending on the audience, like, oh, like you shouldn't do that to women or whatever. Like, but no, the thing about Invincible is there are no limits.
Yeah, they don't hold back.
They don't. And with this show, my biggest worry was that because they have the ability to like redo certain things, that they were going to hold back, but they didn't. So yes, in a weird way, I'm glad that happened, because it shows that there are going to be other things that happen in the show, and they will not hesitate to show how unhinged this story is.
I'm kind of, we'll obviously keep going on with Invincible, but just as like a quick little side tangent, it's kind of strange, but I've noticed that Amazon kind of seems to be the streaming service to have that. Like, I guess the only other example I can pull out from the top of my head is The Boys.
Right.
Like that show does not hold back at all.
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad because we see these in comic books all the time, and it's what we've been asking for these stories and these characters, to where sure, sometimes it's just a gore fest and it's really like unnecessary, but sometimes it like brings a specific quality to a particular type of story because it puts the audience member in that situation. It's like if superheroes were real, they would be tearing each other apart.
Yeah.
And the fact that they don't hold back with this show, it's good to see that. It's good to see like what someone with the strength of 1 billion people could do to another person.
Yeah. I mean, It's kind of like a odd plugin, but like for years, like as you know, I've been like working on my own like comic book universe and everything.
Yeah.
And something that I really wanted to aim for, and this was even before I even knew about the whole Invincible world, but something that I wanted to do was make a comic book universe that had like a lot of the classy and nostalgic feelings of like older DC or Marvel,
Yeah.
but with real world consequences. Not like weird real world scenarios like The Boys where they try to adapt it into a new social
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
version of superheroes, which I'm not a huge fan of, but like actual superheroes and real serious things,
Mm-hmm.
but just with not comic book consequences, like someone dies in one story and comes back in the other, and like everyone's immortal,
Right.
but like real consequences.
Yeah.
Not only affecting the characters, but people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And then how those could be rather short term or long term. And Invincible is kind of like a weird. It's like it's a nice form of proof that it's doable.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say that I want to like rip off something that Invincible is doing, but I like to know that there's a certain version of the story that I want to write, and that there is an audience that is looking for that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I've just always gravitated toward Invincible, because like there is change. Like they don't do rewrites. They don't come up with dumb excuses for why this character has the same origin story in 5 different generations. Like
Yeah.
it's just one continuous story, and there is an end.
Yeah.
Because you guys can kind of already get this, and I've even mentioned it to you, but there is an end to Mark's story.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying like he dies or anything like that, but there is an end.
Like the whole Invincible IP comes to a close.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's even like there's even this very satisfying end to it.
Right.
But it's not like fans were like, "Oh, we love this so much," and then they're like, "Oh, let's rewrite Invincible so that it keeps going." They ended it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it had to. Sure, they are doing a spin-off, but it's of Battle Beast, and it's his own thing.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm excited for too, because I love Battle Beast, and it takes place in between when he escapes from the Viltrum prison all the way up until when he reunites with like the main roster of characters in the Invincible story.
Yeah.
But this also gives them an excuse to introduce new species, new villains, new powerhouses, new threats, new heroes.
Right.
But none of them are human related, which is also kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like these are all going to be things that are just unhinged, cosmic, alien stuff. And then you have Battle Beast, who's bloodthirsty and what have you. So it's going to be very refreshing.
Something that was kind of fun is like the day before the last episode, so Wednesday, I remember scrolling through Instagram and I saw this post about like people were like talking about what they think is going to happen in this last episode and things that they wanted to see, and someone put up like this comic book panel of Invincible, and it was titled like what is supposed to be happening in this last episode. And they showed a character that was like a person in space in like a tech suit, like some kind of like futuristic armor, and they were fighting a Viltrumite.
Oh, Tech Jacket.
Sure, I don't know, but I just remember seeing that. I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of a cool looking character." I was like, I don't know if that's going to be happening because it doesn't look like what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
No, in the second to last episode, he was fighting a couple different versions of Mark.
Yeah.
And in the last episode, he was like helping people out in the beginning of the episode. I was like, whoa. I was like, it's really cool that they're like paying attention to these things.
Yeah.
And that there's an actual like, similar to like how some people, I remember when the Chainsaw Man anime came out, and when the season wrapped up, someone I was working with at the time was like, what's really interesting is that they're actually hitting everything somehow, and but they're going through it really fast. So like what you've seen is like the first couple season or the first couple books or some. He said something along those lines, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And similar thing. So I saw a post with someone who had like all three of the omnibuses of Invincible, and they had like a bookmark at a specific point saying like this is how far you are into Invincible.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, there's so much more left.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't even halfway through this. It wasn't in the second book, but it wasn't even halfway. And I was like, whoa, there's a lot left of Invincible.
Yeah.
So it's exciting that there's still a lot to see.
I'm hoping that they do the full. I hope that with the show they do the full like Mark Grayson story.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they reach to the very end, because not only is it just nice to have like a finished story, but especially when that time comes, you'll see why like it works so well and why it's important to get to that point of his life. But yeah, you brought up Tech Jacket. I honestly was pretty surprised too. I feel like they kind of did Tech Jacket dirty as far as design goes, because I don't know if you've ever seen Tech Jacket in the comic books.
Well, like I said, I did see that one comic book painting.
Yeah. Especially based on artists and what have you, I think he looks a little better in the comics. He also kind of looks like, I don't want to be a dick, but he kind of looks like a girl.
I was going to say that. I was like, I wonder if they gender swapped.
Which is weird, because they haven't done that to anyone. Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Well, no, they didn't gender swap. They made Mark Grayson's best friend gay, which is not in the comics.
Okay.
Because in the comic books, his best friend and Eve date.
Oh.
Before Mark and Eve get together. And then, what's her name? I always forget her name. His first girlfriend. Amber. She was a blonde girl.
Oh.
So I guess it's not out of the picture, but I think it. Oh, they also changed the age of Powerplex's child. The kid was like a baby in the show, while he's kind of like maybe like 2. It's not a dramatic difference, but
right.
He old enough to talk in the comic book.
Gotcha.
But so I guess it's not like out of the picture for them to gender swap Tech Jacket. Me personally, I find it to be an unnecessary change.
Yeah.
But it's not just that's not the part that bothers me. It's literally just how Tech Jacket looks. Like their whole head is like really bubbly, which isn't supposed to be the case. I don't know why they did that. Actually, I think I do. The artist who takes over, or who started Invincible and then retook over after Ryan Ottley stopped, kind of made Tech Jacket look that way. But it still looked better in the comics. But basically, all you need to know about Tech Jacket is Tech Jacket was the new generation Blue Beetle before Blue Beetle was Blue Beetle.
Like Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle?
Yeah. I could be wrong, but he kind of had that vibe going on before Jaime did. But no, yeah, in the comic book, during the Invincible War, he took on 6 different marks at once.
Yeah, that's what I saw in the comic book panel. He was like swarmed by marks.
He took them all on.
Damn.
Tech Jacket's a big deal in the Invincible. Like, he's like another Invincible. I think he's like an Asian teenager. He's not Asian American. He's like Asian. And he gets a device from another species that turns into a suit of armor. And then he encounters other Tech Jacket.
I wonder if he's supposed to be more of a nod to Guyver.
He kind of.
Because there's a lot of characters in Invincible that are clearly like nods.
Yeah, and then there's other Tech Jackets, kind of like Green Lantern. Like there's like other Tech Jackets from other races that have like the same suit, and he's like the human one. But
so that is kind of similar to Blue Beetle, to like the newer like what they've recently done with Blue Beetle.
Right, and like he follows the trope of being like a young teenager.
Yeah,
as a a really powerful superhero.
Right.
He's almost like the kind of like the Superman, Batman, or Captain America, Iron Man dynamic.
Got it.
That's like them.
Interesting.
And I know they kind of have that with Robot, but Robot isn't on the same power level physically as Tech Jacket.
Okay.
Robot's more intellectually powerful. I mean,
God, there's so much I want to talk
doesn't
about. Kind of on the long line of examples of like characters that they tweaked a little bit. Isn't Robot like his human form Rex, or was Rudy now Rex? In the comic books, isn't he like white with red hair?
both Rex and Rudy are
Like
white
gingers.
ginger
Yeah.
boys, and then they kind of like adapted that to like caramel. I don't know what's like. I don't know. Like
Yeah, no,
I don't know what race he is in the show. I don't, or like ethnicity, I
Yeah.
should say. Yeah, so that was another difference. I don't know. I'm less bothered at the fact, or I'm not really bothered at all if Tech Jacket is a female. I'm more bothered on the helmet. That's the only thing that bothers
Well,
me.
you were also talking about like how there's a couple times in the show when Spawn was supposed to be in a particular scene and
Yeah.
they would substitute him for someone else. Or...
Spawn was supposed to be at the funeral.
In the first season, you mean?
No, in... Oh, yeah, he was supposed to be there. He was supposed to be at the funeral for
Yeah, like
Rex.
Yeah.
He was supposed to... He was the sequence of Viltrum Mark going up against Wolfman. That was supposed to be Spawn. And the same line, I killed you once, I can kill you again, was supposed to be towards Spawn. The only difference is that... Well, that's something I'm curious about. They never talk about his version of Spawn, like in his dimension.
Well, yeah,
but
because...
what he's naively unaware of is the Spawn in the Invincible story is main continuity Spawn.
Yeah.
Which is like OP Spawn. So no, he did not have a chance.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, I think another big thing, too, is just like Todd McFarlane's never done the multi-dimensional... Because right now, all the different spawns are just from different points in time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they've never done... He's never done like the multi-dimensional, like multiverse of spawns.
They only have one Spawn who is in an alternate story of Spawn. And so you could consider that an alternate timeline.
You're talking about the Reaper spawn?
Raven Spawn?
Raven spawn.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just call him the Reaper spawn.
You could count that,
Yeah,
but there's no like indication that he's actually like an alternate dimension.
Yeah, because I think you're right. Because I think even in his original comic books, he was Al Simmons, right?
Yeah.
But instead of Malboja, it was Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Yeah. They call him Nosferatu, but I think in the comic books, he was actually like named Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's
kind of cool though. It's pretty fun. I'm trying to think. I thought going into this conversation before, when you were originally like, oh, we should do an episode on Invincible, I thought I wasn't going to have a lot to say about Invincible, because at that point, the last couple episodes, like maybe the last 3 episodes, were like really exciting.
Yeah.
But up until then, I was actually kind of underwhelmed, especially coming off of the second season of Invincible.
Mm-hmm.
I was like really underwhelmed so far. I was like, I feel like they keep throwing things up in the air, but nothing's happening.
Well,
And like, there's just kind of a lot of different things going on, and Mark's kind of like handling this, and he's handling that, and he's trying to deal with home. And then it wasn't until like it became very clear when Multiplex, that's his name, Multiplex, Powerplex. Sorry, Multiplex. When Powerplex came into the picture, and they started like all of these random pieces and stuff that they were like throwing along, like started to feel like they were fusing together a little bit, and they were going somewhere. And I was like, oh, maybe this is starting to like make sense.
yeah.
And then it wasn't until right after that all of the different versions of Mark came, and I was like, fuck. And then right after they were done with them,
Well, see,
Conquest showed up. I was like,
that's the interesting thing, is because the show in a way is kind of paced the same way that the comic books are paced.
yeah.
Which is why in some moments it's really fast paced and in some it's kind of slow. But like as you said, so the whole fight between Mark and Omni-Man in Chicago, in that moment, it's like, oh, that's all it is. It's just a fight between these two powerhouses. But then obviously that leads to things later on, like Powerplex and how he was affected and how he comes back. But that's how you should be looking at the whole show. Right. All those moments that kind of feel slow, or like they kind of throw something in the air, but it feels like it was kind of random. It comes back harder later.
Right.
And even like the times when me and you are watching the show together and they throw in a nod, and I'm like, God, that means something, but I can't tell you. It's because I know what that nod is leading into.
Yeah.
But like you'll experience it for yourself and you'll be like, holy cannoli.
I mean, that does make me think that just alone in this season we've had there was I don't know what his name is, the guy who turns into the dragon.
I always have a name in my head, but it's just what I call him. It's not necessarily what he's called.
Yeah, but like they kind of teased like, oh, he's definitely coming back.
Yeah.
At the end of the episode, the last episode, they referenced the little Martian parasite things.
Yeah.
That were like just in the sewers. Like they were just about, they're about to pop at any moment.
Which was its own buildup throughout both seasons 1 and 2.
Right. So I'm kind of just acknowledging what you're saying. So many of those little things happened. And there was even a comedic one. In the second season, I think it was the second season, they did like this random cold open to an episode where these archaeologists found like a mummy, like in a tomb.
Yeah.
And it was like this big eerie thing, and it literally went nowhere. And then it was rather the 7th or the 8th episode, somewhere in the beginning. I think it was in the 7th episode with all of the marks. One of them like lands in the middle of the desert, and the mummy shows up, and he's like, "Finally, a worthy vessel." And then that mark like zips off.
Well, that
and he's mummy, like, "No."
That mummy pops up in all 3 seasons. But because the first time it was like a mercenary, he was kind of like a douche, and then he gets killed. The second time it's the 2 girls.
Right.
And then the 2 girls make a reappearance. One was weakened and one wasn't.
Yeah.
But that, I can't remember if the mummy was actually in the comic books or if he was mentioned or anything.
Regardless, but it's a fun little...
It is a nice like comedic relief in certain moments. And to kind of just have an excuse to like, let's just do something fun with like such a serious show.
Yeah.
Like, let's just throw in something real quick just to like break the ice a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Continue.
I think that's all I...
Oh, okay. Yeah. But something a little off topic, but I was thinking about like that mark that landed in the desert. Mm-hmm. I was really... I don't know if it's something that was in the comic books or if it was just good writing, but I was really impressed by that little scene in episode 7 when the Marks were all reconvened over Mark's mom's house.
Yeah.
And they were all talking about like, fuck, he's not here. And like I was really looking forward to killing her again. But and then there's that one masked Mark that was like, he's like, I came here to save Mom. And he's like, I miss Mom a lot. And you guys... if you don't understand that, then like you don't know what it means to be invincible. Like he was having like a really genuine, like almost like he seemed like Mark that we know for that moment. And I thought that was like really interesting. I was like, he just got done tearing up everything to allegedly get to his mom and save her and bring her back home to his world. But it's like, but for that moment, he seemed like Mark. And I was like, why? It's so interesting. Like, I want to learn. I wish I could learn about, like, these different Marks.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen so many different comic book panels of the version of Mark where he has, like, the cape. Like, he's the yellow and black, and he's got the cape.
Yeah.
I was just so annoyed of him, though. He was just such a prick.
Yeah.
But I do like that. Like, even just... oh my god, I'm blanking on the actor's name. Steven Yeun?
Mm-hmm.
like how he was able to do all of the different voices of Mark and all of them be different and have their own personalities. That was really fun.
It's interesting because like they're so like obviously they're all it's weird. Most of them, so it's supposed to be kind of like this nod that in every other version of Mark,
Yeah,
he's bad.
right.
There's only one good Mark, but there's a couple Marks to where they're bad for like reasons that might make anyone a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's one Mark, like the masked Mark, he became evil because he lost his loved ones.
Yeah,
And he kind of just lost it. The Mark who said like I really miss why am I forgetting his name? Mark's best friend. I almost said Ethan. But
what is his best friend's name?
But anyways, he says like I miss this person. And that's a version of Mark who was kind of like forced to follow the ways of his father and like did it.
But he abandoned his best friend.
He abandoned everyone.
Right.
But only because he thought he had to, not necessarily because he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the other Marks, they're just off the rails.
Right.
And there's the only one that I don't want to tell you about is the yellow caped one.
I figured he had more of a significance because I've seen him a lot.
He has a little more, yeah, but it's like all the other ones, they're like really just petty versions of Mark. The only one that I think is hilarious is the Omni Mark, or the one that goes by like Omni-Man or something like that.
Okay, like the very Viltrumite looking one.
The one that's red and white.
Oh, that one. Okay, yeah.
The one that literally looks like Omni-Man.
He was like obnoxious and...
He's a fraud.
Oh.
He's not as powerful as he makes himself out to be.
Well, yeah, he's getting his ass kicked.
Not only that, but he claims that he killed his father in his world. But that's not true.
Gotcha.
I think it's rather when he got lucky or like something happened to Nolan and he took victory over it and he took on the mantle. But that's not true.
Gotcha.
And actually in the comic books, he dies in the Invincible War almost immediately. They kind of like, I think they wanted to keep a significant amount left, but there's a couple of those that were supposed to die sooner. Like he was supposed to be like in a corner with his head like snapped.
They did kill off a couple of them.
They did.
Because like in the Pentagon, there was like one or two of them that were already dead.
But he was supposed to be one during the whole sequence of like heroes and Marks dying. He was supposed to be one of them. To show that he is a fraud. Like, he's not as powerful as he claims to be.
Yeah.
He is, I don't know if you could tell, he is a little thicker than the rest of them, but it's purely for show.
Gotcha.
Which is something else I don't know if you noticed, but Mark is a little bigger in each season.
Yeah.
It
was kind of hard to tell in this last episode, though, because I don't know about you, but there was a couple of moments where he looked more like the Ryan Otley in Invincible.
Yeah.
There was a couple moments where I was like significantly just like looking at Mark and because he was skinnier than normal and he looked really elongated. And then there was some angles he was at where he looked ridiculously muscular. Like when he was bashing his head into Conquest, whenever he'd rear up, his neck was like wider than his head.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, that...
I don't know how in depth they're going to get with that, but Mark is supposed to... Like, in all those books that you saw in that post, in like basically think of it in each book, Mark's supposed to get like a little bit bigger.
Gotcha.
Because at the end of his arc, Mark is supposed to have like the same body frame as Superman.
Interesting.
He kind of looks like Omni-Man. I was gonna say someone else.
Can I be real about something?
Yeah.
I don't like the lenses. Something I've never liked about Invincible's design is those bubble lenses that he wears.
I don't necessarily know what it is that made them want to keep it. I don't know if maybe it's just something that's like, oh, you know what? It's not really a look that's common with characters like him.
Maybe it was to avoid them, similar to Spider-Man, like not having to draw eyes.
That is possible. Because like, I don't know if you've seen, but the original design of Invincible is the bulletproof Invincible, yellow and blue.
Well, I think that's why they even in the first season when he was like going through the different suits, he was looking at this. He's like, no.
But so like I don't know if maybe they like made that goggle look and they're like, you know what, there's something there and it hasn't been done with characters like him before and maybe we'll just keep it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I personally, it's just grown to me. Like when I think of Invincible, I think of
Right.
that.
No, I get that.
And it looks so weird when you who some people refer to as immature Mark. He's a Mark who's like a few months younger, but the one with that literally just looked like Invincible, but he didn't have lenses.
Right.
That's an immature Mark. It's so weird, like, because you're so accustomed to him having the lenses.
Right.
And then
see, but that's what's... Maybe it's because of Spider-Man, but the Mark that had, like, the full face mask...
Yeah.
Like, those... Like, the lenses on that looked fine.
It
and then Mark without the lenses also looks fine.
Yeah.
But Mark with lenses and, like, the cowl, it's just odd.
Yeah.
It just looks weird. Like, to me... tons of people like it. Enough people like it enough to where it does him justice. I personally just think that lenses look weird. But that was just a random little note. Adam had an interesting little segment in the show.
Adam Eve?
No. Adam. Adam? Adam. The one-eyed guy.
Oh, yeah. Adam. Duh.
Adam.
Sorry, I was thinking of Adam Eve for...
I just kept saying Adam. Brandon. Adam.
Adam.
Yeah, it was kind of fun seeing him have his little time in the spotlight again.
Yeah.
He freed Nolan in Battle Beast. Unfortunately, Battle Beast got saved. He was out in space. He tore a fucking Viltrumite to shreds.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing left of him.
Yeah.
And Battle Beast was frozen in a fetal position, and some stupid alien recovery team found him, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And yep, Battle Beast is back.
Yep.
But those are fun. I like that. I like that there's a show again that I'm like keeping myself invested. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Since I've had a show that I've kept up with, like I am with Invincible. One show that I really want to get into is Severance, but we don't have Apple TV. You can watch the first episode on Amazon, but it's just...
you can only watch the first episode?
Yeah, they give you the first... Like, if you have Prime, you can watch the first episode, and then they're like, if you want to watch the rest, you can rather get the Apple extension, or you can get Apple TV. I don't want to get another subscription to something that I'm not going to use that often. Unless I do a 7-day free trial thing and I just binge it. 2 seasons in 7 days.
I mean, as far as shows that I'm dedicated to, I just... Dexter New Blood. Because I'm a huge Dexter fan. And I'm going to watch Original Sin.
Is that the one of him when he was younger?
It's like the prequel to like how he got into Miami PD.
I know that there's like a couple different...
Yeah, there's Dexter, Dexter New Blood, and Dexter.
I thought there was another one before these two new ones.
It says that there's one called Dexter Resurrection.
That's what I remember.
But
I remember there was like a...
I haven't done any research on that, and I have no idea where that falls into. If I'm right, I could be wrong. I think it's a movie that takes place in between Dexter and... No, that wouldn't make any sense.
See, the way I remember it is like a year or two ago.
I'm going to look this up.
I thought there was Dexter Resurrection. And I thought, like you were saying, I thought it was like a special that Netflix did. And it was like the return of all of the characters. And then New Blood is like really recent. And the newest one, whatever you said the prequel one was called.
It says that it's a sequel to New Blood. But I don't know if that's true.
So maybe New Blood came first. I know one of them came out like a year or two ago.
It's not out yet, though.
Okay, so one of them did. Something did.
New first episode 2025. Where? I don't think that's real. Showtime. Oh, summer of 2025. Okay, well, anyways.
Whatever.
It's also hard to explain, like, why I don't know. That was a good show. I love Dexter. But yeah, Invincible is great. there's so much I want to talk about, but I can't because then spoilers.
There's a lot to look forward to. I hope that whatever it is that caused them to crunch and do some shortcuts and stuff, I hope that doesn't carry over into the later seasons.
I only have one guess. I think that's the fans' fault.
Why?
Because during season 2, fans gave them a lot of crap for taking as much time as they were.
Yeah.
I think there's a kind of like a pressure thing to where they felt like as if if maybe they didn't get it out at a certain period of time without like a in between hiatus,
Like they'd start to lose their following or something.
right? Which I think is unfortunate because like despite how much I love the 3rd season, I personally like yes, the animation was slightly different. It wasn't a bother to me. I love the show.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from anything.
If they spent the amount of time that they probably wanted to and made it like just as high quality as like the 1st season,
Yeah.
then sure, it would have been like a lot better. But I might be wrong. It might be a financial thing, it might be a time thing, who knows? But as of right now, I'm blaming the fans. Cuz fans can suck.
It's possible. All I would hope is that the team is able to take something from it,
Yeah.
not have to rush the next season, but also be a little careful with shortcuts that are taken and stuff. Because they probably know by now that people will know.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of valid too, because like seeing the first season, especially looking back at the first season, you see these things that people appreciated so much.
Yeah.
And for that to be taken away is kind of a bummer. And obviously, as things ramp up in the story, we wouldn't want to see a lower quality show when a more intense thing is supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
Because a similar thing fell to like the Junji Ito show that came out on HBO Max. Max. Like the first episode was insanely detailed and looked just like the manga, but the following episodes just looked like garbage.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was because of a financial thing, and there was a big debate on like what they should have done differently. But it's just a part of it does come from a good place because fans wouldn't want to see the show turn into something similar for similar reasons.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I trust that they'll give a good quality show.
Yeah.
Regardless.
I'm still going to watch it no matter what.
Yeah, definitely. I hope that the craze dies down and a live action version of it never happens. At least not for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I would hope to have kids that are of a particular age at that point. When they're like, oh, a live action Invincible will be happening. I'd be like, oh wow, you guys actually waited to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, look how many Spider-Mans and Batmans and Superman we have. I wouldn't want Invincible to fall into something similar.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know, Brandon, you have any other thoughts?
No.
Anything you want to...
It's unfortunate because, like, as much as I want to talk about Invincible, I already know that if I keep talking, I'm going to start spoiling things for you and for people who haven't read the comics.
Yeah.
Which is that I don't want that to happen. I spoiled one thing on accident. One of my friends' life, or one of my friends in my entire life, and I think about it day.
Is it something that's happened in the show or no?
No, not for Invincible, just in general. Like, I've had an experience of spoiling something for someone when I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it because I was just so excited talking about the subject.
Yeah.
I think about it all the time.
I've been there.
I don't want to do that again.
I think that's another reason why we take spoilers so seriously.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's such it could be the smallest thing. It doesn't even have to be plot related. It could be something as simple as like a revealing of a character or a way that a character looks or whatever.
Yeah.
Like we want to see, it's kind of like when we were talking about Death Stranding and I ended up showing you that 10-minute trailer and we had a conversation on this
10 minutes long.
Yeah, and we just like there's just some things like they showed the Magellan Man and they showed what was the other big thing? Oh, and then they showed the character Neil and how he looked like Snake.
Yeah.
And it's like those are just two things I would have loved to see in the game. And because yes, they're most definitely just a nod to Metal Gear Solid. They're nothing more than that. But as a fan of Metal Gear Solid and as a new avid player of Death Stranding, those would have just been two really cool surprises.
Right.
But
I'm sorry, real quick. I'll also just say I will never forget. There's a day in high school. Was it high school? Middle school? I was in class, and it was when the first. What was it? Force Awakens? Star Wars Force Awakens?
I don't remember the order of.
I think that was the first of the new trilogy. But I just remember it was before everyone started hating like the new trilogy, and it was like when it was kind of exciting to have Star Wars back.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the movie yet, and I will say a spoiler: if you haven't seen the movie, it's been out for who knows how fucking long now.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget. I was like, "Oh, please don't talk about the movie. I haven't seen it yet." And there's this kid in class who looked at me straight in the eyes and goes, "Han Solo dies." And I was like, "Wow!" I didn't even believe him. But if there was a chance that was true,
right,
I would have been mad, and guess what? It was true.
Yeah.
Han Solo died.
Kind of like when Deadpool and Wolverine came out and you made a comment on like a TikTok about how someone was literally recording like a scene in the movie.
Not only
and you just made a comment and some guy went womp womp. It's like, dude, grow up.
Not only that, but like when No Way Home for the new Spider-Man movie came out, and someone took a picture of Tobey Maguire on his back after getting stabbed, I almost cried. Because one, it was before it was even confirmed that they were even in the movie.
Yeah.
It was before I've seen the movie. And now you're possibly telling me that there's a chance Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, the best Spider-Man of all live-action Spider-Man, died. What? Again, it was like I didn't see the movie, so my brain told me that he died.
Yeah.
I was so mad. And I would never want to do that to someone else. Even if certain people don't care, I don't want to risk it.
Right.
This one I don't feel as bad for. There was a coworker I had for a recent job that I had. I spoiled the fact that Iron Man died in Endgame. But again, this was only a few months ago compared to when the movie actually came out. And I was like, "You didn't know that?" And she goes, "No, I haven't seen that movie yet. I'm watching the Avenger movies." And my brain was like, because she was like a nerd. She played video games and all this stuff. Yeah. And I'm like,
you just kind of assumed.
I was like, there's no way you didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's even hard to not come across that on social media.
Right.
Especially after all this time.
Yeah, so my brain was like...
Even if you're a nerd and you keep up with... I
still felt bad. Like, she was genuinely upset that I spoiled it for her.
Right.
But there was a part of me that didn't feel as bad because I was like, it's been out for, like...
But at the same time, back to, like, when the roles are reversed, if it's something that, like, you're getting into...
True.
You know, it's like if I started, like, it doesn't matter if I'm starting a show right now that, like, I've never seen Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I still don't really care to, but every now and then I'm like, I've been thinking about watching Game of Thrones and I still don't know what happens in the show. After all of this time, I've seen clips, I've heard things, I don't know what any of it means, but it's just enough to where, like, I could go into the show right now and anything I've heard from it would still be a surprise. But if someone was like, "Oh, that person dies. This happens in the show." I'd be like, "Dude, the point of me watching the show is so that, like, I can find that out for myself."
No, yeah, I know. And it's another reason why it's like it's hard for me to talk about Invincible because like even though the story's been out for who knows how long now, the show is relatively new and
Yeah, and
it's something
that's the
that
whole point of the show is to bring a new audience in.
right. So like I don't want to spoil that for you and yeah, so yeah, I don't know what else to say.
But aside from Invincible, I don't know, Brian. Any news? Anything else you want to do before we wrap up?
I mean, all I really have is just plugs. I mean, I just released my another Dead Space video. I'm working on the part 2 of the Metal Gear Solid game that we recorded. I am actually writing a script for a few different videos that are not video game related. Well, kind of, but so that's in the works. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say.
Yeah, same. I mean, I did post a little thing that was just kind of talking about like me, you know, just kind of like putting my presence back onto my channel again because it's been kind of void for a while.
Right.
But it is nothing more than that. It's not like actual content.
By the way, I watched that video when Henry was here.
Yeah.
And he was just like watching the entire time. Which, by the way, by the time this video comes out, my son will be 2 days away from being 1 year old. 1 year old. So,
damn, he's like a whole grown guy at this
yeah,
point.
I know. Like, I'm gonna start paying for like college bills and stuff.
Jeez.
Yeah. So you guys should like totally wish him a happy birthday because he's like
granddad much. But I think that does it for today. We've rambled on a lot about stuff.
Ye dog.
Yeah, dog. That being said, I've been your host, Aaron.
And I've been your host, Brandon.
And I hope you all have a great rest of your whatever.
And I hope that you like this. You're welcome.
He really just put that mic up to his butt. Anyway, see y'all later.
See ya.
Peace.